seems like NASA goes to Mars and bush pilots go to Patagonia. It's kind of a dream in that it stresses the light aircraft right to the last percentile of its capacity to handle wind, distance, altitude, terrain, roughness, lack of fuel. The very bizarre wildness of it, the way this thin piece of land goes down almost touching Antarctica, with extremely high mountains, with Bernoulli's tube type valleys, and swirling, gusting winds up to 80 or 90 miles an hour. On 7 occasions I flew backwards over the road. One time I actually touched down on a road, still, like a heron landing on a swamp. The scope of this project includes finding beauty everywhere in South America, particularly where humans have not touched anything. And it's absolutely astonishing to me what a tremendous accomplishment it is when human beings do absolutely nothing. I write about a page a day. The act of writing has become my friend, in that I can put my pen into motion and expect thoughts to show up. A vast, hazy area with color, scent, and rhythm, sound, dreams, and silence. In travel, the primary activity is seeing, then listening. Especially in the plane, there's not much to hear. The engine both stimulates and inhibits thinking. Random ideas swim to the surface and are difficult to isolate. Flying is a kind of dreaming awake. I do feel the Cessna 180 is absolutely perfect for this job in terms of its weight-carrying ability, in terms of being a stable platform, in terms of being an economical means of very, very long transportation. Thoughts can escape faster than they arrive and drown in the big engine sound. It is possible to feel quite securely encased. The plane is always facing forward, contributing to the illusion that it is impossible to get lost, that there are merely momentary circles of confusion. Flying forces decisiveness. You can't sort of halfway get somewhere. Intent and the laws of physics need to agree, and that requires discipline and a kind of release into the sky. Flying, in spite of everything that can be analyzed to death, requires a dash of boldness. South America has a very, they're a little puzzled by the existence of airplanes. They see them as useful, but they raise a lot of questions in their mind. And these countries actually are not very concerned about their images. They operate more in metaphors of reputation. Even more strange to them are films of landscape in which there's nothing. As the Argentine military said to me, "Why are you bothering to take a picture of that river? There's nothing there." So it's not easy to understand the moving cinematography of landscape. It doesn't seem like that there's anything to be understood. But in the context of the Natural History Unit of the BBC, which so brilliantly films animals, animal behavior, and environments and ecosystems, it can all be understood as forming one complete overview of an environment. Writing and filming share the tension between perception and memory, having to recall within the instant an imagined future. For it is enough to know that some elegant and rare things belong to the sky. Another reason why you don't see that many images of South America is the difficulty of access. Not only the language barriers, the complexity of the permits, the distances, the altitudes, which for aircraft like this are quite formidable. The winds, the weather, the climate, everything from equatorial heat to frozen ice. The distance between the airports, how far you have to go with an airplane, the fueling points. The Cessna 180 has 6 fuel tanks in the wings, with 8 hours of endurance, so fuel is rarely a problem until there isn't enough of it. Lago Argentina, the glacier filming assignment, is a 260-mile round trip from the nearest aviation fuel. It's too far. So I borrowed a truck and went to town 7 times, refilling a bent drum with 97-octane Verdi Special. It worked. And once filming and couldn't get fuel in Puerto Maldonado, Peru, you had to go to Cobija, Bolivia. And that means you had to change countries in order to refuel. Cobija, Bolivia, had fuel in 55-gallon drums in a pigsty locked up by the military. So it took most of the day to get the pigsty unlocked, and then they had to be rolled half a mile to the airport and put into the plane. The activity during filming days is basically non-stop. There's always something to do. The planning to change the film, loading the film. Sometimes I can set the autopilot and film and change the film while flying to location. Turn off the autopilot, film on the location, turn the autopilot back on, then upload the magazine on the way back, land, change, clean the lens, set exposure, write another flight plan.
What's the purpose of the trip?
Trinidad, economic. They're arguing over it. They're writing the whole thing over again. Well then we ride apart.
7 horas. Está descargando el pichaná que dice su cara. Y el resto lo va a hacer pasar acá.
Indíquenle al conductor que esperen mañana allá en Maldonado.
I came to the conclusion that everybody has a job to do. Those people in their offices, they have used the air conditioner, they've got stamps, they can read Spanish. They're doing their job. I've got a job to do. We're all doing our job. The fees get paid, the permissions get issued, I leave the country, we get the shots. We've all done our job. It's just a little bit out of sync. Fitzroy from Lago Argentina, Calafate, into the wind was about an hour, and then coming back was about half an hour. And when you took off, you couldn't quite see Fitzroy, so you didn't know what the conditions would be. And in Patagonia, the weather can roll in from 1 second to the next. So while you're flying toward Fitzroy and you're 30 miles away, it looks this is going to be a perfect shot. And then one time I remember getting there, and as I arrived, the cloud just rolled right over the rock and wrapped it up for the night. Conversely, you can fly on the other side, turn around, come over at 200 knots the other way, and while rolling film, the cloud will reveal the mountain. A magical roll happened over Fitzroy. A cloud fog was boiling through sharp rocks, bearing me almost sideways on an immense wind. The aircraft had reached the limit of its performance. On the lee side of the peaks, the downdrafts were vicious, permitting only the narrowest of lines to be flown where the picture attained its brilliance, timing to the nearest fraction of a second, being there at a moment that needed the power of the wind to manifest its theater. There can be planning only up to a point. After that, the instant is released to the gods. Flying in southern Venezuela, I discovered a essentially monument valley of the American Southwest, transposed to the tropics, as if the master chef has only a limited repertoire in his kitchen, but will add a dash of the Nile or a bit of sunshine here or there, move the jungle over to the mountain. And landing at this little airstrip, which seemed so remote, so much of the wilderness, I was able to walk a short distance, find the thatched village, be greeted by Indians who were extremely helpful and welcoming, making it very, very easy to work here. This camera magazine holds 400 feet of film, and it runs at 90 feet a minute, so it's just a little bit over 4 minutes at 24 frames a second. BBC likes higher and higher frame rates, so let's say you shoot at 50 or even 100 frames a second. Shot at 100 frames a second, this magazine is only 1 minute long. The more we sent film to London, the more it seemed the BBC wanted, as if it were not going to end. From the grasslands of the Brazilian Pantanal, where we scraped over a termite mound and brushed through palm trees, to Santa Cruz, Bolivia, where brilliant sheet metal workers repaired the plane's right wingtip damaged in Ushuaia winds, onto Puerto Maldonado, Peru, the beginning of the Amazon. There we encountered serious rain, muddy meandering rivers, and a seeming repetition in the landscape that numbed the decisiveness of what to film. There is something about a river that will refuse to be contained in a frame. And with 1 million square miles of jungle canopy, the idea of composition, especially from a moving plane, appears meaningless. Yet it's all about appearances, what can be translated into 35 millimeter, 400-foot rolls. The image standing in front of me can be an opaque wall, and just on the other side is the translucency of what I both wish to record and communicate. Space is limitless in the same way that time stands still. My Spanish is terrible because I'm tone deaf with languages. I can give orders in Spanish, but I can't receive them.
Cessna 49226 Alpha, ESA, VHS Sud, altura 3000.
Okay, 26 Alpha, say again please, your Spanish is really very bad, say again please.
Okay, 4926 Alpha, 10 miles south, altitude 3000. Request permission for landing on runway 36.
Well, you can land anywhere and the way you want, alright?
Teresa y ahora.
I have met interesting local pilots. For example, Lucho, the French Bolivian. Bush pilot was considered the premier bush pilot of Bolivia. Been here for 30 years. Never uses a chart. Had the immense privilege of flying with him and having him help me up at Salar de Uyuni, Lake Titicaca, some remote airstrips as high as 14,000 feet.
I can recognize a good pilot and somebody really loving his job. And I learned a couple of things from Bob, really. He's a natural pilot. He's a, well, I can say this is the best pilot I've ever met. This is true. I really feel that.
There's no more thought given to flying. It's all about the photography. Hundreds of thousands of years ago, Lake Titicaca was much larger, maybe 400 miles long, and slowly from the south end it began drying up. It's an altitude of 13,000 feet. And so what's left of the dried up part is called Salar de Uyuni. It's 100 miles across, solid rock salt. And I landed the Cessna on that, taking pictures primarily of the interest of Karen Bass, series producer. I feel I have stepped onto a crunchy, blinding dance floor 100 miles across, and the band is playing silence. A white sea of salt at 12,000 feet. It is perfectly level white, salt resting on water, itself floating on salt. The thin air yields a powerful, bright, dark blue. The altitude alone is surreal. The magic is in the unacceptability of the vision. In my forgetfulness, it will live on. Ocean flying approaches sailing in its feel for the elements. The imagination cannot exhaust the varieties of texture on the water, the scent of salt, moisture and light, playing with fog in the rolling distance. Thunderstorms, the great floating sky jellyfish, insubstantial, powerful mirages in white, benign drag. The Amazon is a garden growing them. I feel alone, looking at what must be their power. It's a good quality, kind of a shared solitude. I filmed the Pantanal, which means swamp in Portuguese. It's a combination of grasslands and floating multicolored meadows with giant water lilies. I could see the oso hormiguera anteater wandering through large termite mounds. I know a photograph has an edge, and this place doesn't. It just extends. You couldn't fill in the empty places on the map any better. Exquisite purple and yellow canopies, large ambling rhea, soaring parakeets. Even puma and jaguar are plentiful, not even endangered. And the people everywhere had a strange sweetness. It made me aware that I must be holding too much tension to see properly. The people in South America are astonishingly friendly and helpful. For example, we landed in a remote corner of the Bolivian Amazon and got hungry for breakfast at this remote grass strip. And there was a lady there who offered to make some eggs and so on. And it seemed to be taking a long time. It turned out she had to walk a mile to the chicken coop, pick up the eggs, carry them back, and prepare the breakfast. So I thought, well, once I understood what's going on, I'd go out and shoot another roll of the river. Well, it's 1 year today filming in South America. And it's been enough time to essentially feel like I've entered timelessness, to achieve a sort of mythic voyage, because my senses can no longer contain everything that I've done. It includes over 100,000 nautical miles, 300 rolls of 35 millimeter film, and the sense that something has been taken on that's more than I know what it is. I can easily imagine taking the Cessna around the world, a slow geophysical crawl with long-range tanks over water, touching lightly the earth, leaving soft footprints, reloading an endless stream of 35 millimeter magazines, gathering light and cross-pollinating glimpses of planetary explorations. The images are but gifts to awareness of our global home. Latin America forces me to reflect on it as a whole with this journey. There's a conflict everywhere between motion and stillness. On the surface is a terrible restlessness. At the center is a deep silence, not made articulate, hidden, isolated, alone, inarticulate, unexplained, perhaps unexplainable. To call it repressed, one would have to call in the existence of yet another force. History can cook a dish for 1,000 years before serving, and then it's a mutiny. The plane enlarges the present, especially when it is not demarcated by human activity. Human inactivity is a very great accomplishment when seen from the air. What humans have not done and left untouched borders on the miraculous. I am almost inspired to do less and call it a contribution. I am seeing too much to be able to ignore how wonderful it is that we have left alone enormous sections of the world. Momentum accumulates power, and in South America, interruptions can be severe. When everything works together and the weather is excellent, the results can be spectacular. The screened outcome drives the whole project. Knowing when to push and when to lay low is a balancing act. The way we travel over things is different from the way they are. The act of flying abstracts everything and has the possibility of revealing the connective tissue of the landscape. Nothing ever looks the same twice, yet the salient details leap out. The whole is compelling, and I know I am seeing the rare and the unusual. Maybe there's something else that I haven't noticed, a third state of being represented by the residue of photography.